Aloha. Well, go ahead and get started. So my name is Lisa Ka'anoi, and I'm with the Native Hawaiian Health Scholarship Program at Papa'olalokahi. And I'd like to welcome you to Kōmike Mālama Ola, Navigating COVID-19. And we'll just go over some housekeeping before we get started. For those of you that are joining us for the first time, just want to let you know that this will be recorded and shared with everyone who is registered, so that in the future, if there's a webinar you'd like to see, but you're unable to join us, as long as you register, you will receive the recording. For questions, comments, or feedback, you can use the question and answer feature or the chat. And then also, if this is your first time joining us for our webinar, you will be automatically added to our email list for future webinars. And then lastly, at the end, there will be a survey that pops up. If you could give us your mana'o, that would be great. That's how we get our topics for future webinars. This webinar today is scheduled for an hour and a half, so if you have to leave, that's okay. We will also send you a reminder email on Monday to complete the survey. So we will go ahead and I'll start introducing our guest speakers. So first of all is Auntie Dolly Crawford. She was born and raised in Haleiwa, Oahu. She's a graduate of Waialua Intermediate and High School, 1951. And St. Francis Hospital School of Nursing in Honolulu, 1954. In 1956, she married Bill Crawford. She's lived in San Diego since. They have adult children, 3 grandchildren, and 3 grandbabies. Now for Auntie Kaʻala, she was born and raised in Paoa Valley, Oahu. Currently resides part-time in Palolo Valley, Oahu, and Huntington Beach, California. She is a 1960 graduate of Kaimuki High and 1964 graduate of University of Hawaii at Manoa College of Nursing. She moved to Los Angeles and began her nursing career at USC LAC Medical Center. She's a retired nurse, certified case manager, developed and managed ICU, the intensive care unit and critical care unit at USC Rancho Los Amigos National Rehabilitation Center with extensive acute care and chronic disease management. She's also developed the cardiac rehab unit, a nurse clinical pharmacist anticoagulation clinic, and role of liaison discharge nurse. She's retired as a certified nurse case manager after 39 years with LA County Department of Hospitals. She's got a long list of community service, and she has received also 1 of 3 awards. One of them was the Dr. Alexander Ka'onohi Award from Papa'olalokahi in April 2011. And she is a widow, 51 years, married Victor Ka'ivi Pang. She's a 1956 graduate of St. Anthony Valley. She has 2 sons and 4 grandchildren. So I will go ahead and turn it over to Auntie Dolly Crawford to have her start today's webinar, today's presentation.
Start my video. Oh, there we go. Aloha, everybody. My name is Dolly Crawford, as I was introduced, and you heard a little bit about my background. I would also like to add that I'm also an ombudsman here in the state of California, certified, and acting as an advocate for residents in skilled nursing facilities and residential care facilities for the elderly here in San Diego County. And I think it's like most nurses, we can't really get away from the work. I find it very rewarding. It really is. Every case is so different, and it's a learning activity for me. So, as I was introduced, I'm also the founder of ʻŌiwi Hawaii o San Diego, of the Hawaiian Civic Club of San Diego, and its first Kaʻalakahikina, and presently I serve as the recording secretary. And I'm here to share our club experience navigating the unknown and ever-changing waters of COVID-19 and the pandemic. You know, our club events in 2020, we started off like most clubs with our first general meeting in January. Fortunately, it was our nominations, elections, and installation meeting and awards. So it was very beneficial that we were able to get that out before there was a limitation on crowd gathering. And also we spoke about our formation of our Na'opio program, that we came back from convention really enthused about that. So that was kind of a statement and part of our agenda that evening. And also the events that were coming up that spring, which included our Prince Day celebration, luncheon, and scholarship. And we were in full force because that was due to happen, I think, March 21st of that year. And on March 18th, the governor mandated, what would you call that? I can't even remember what it is now. But anyway, he stopped all gatherings, churches, schools, anything, all gatherings were stopped. So we returned some of the tickets that we sold and just kind of calmed everything down. Although our president called an emergency meeting and we had to cancel our Navahini workshop that was scheduled for April, also our genealogy workshop. And there was several other events that were happening in the community. But we just kind of sat still and waited very patiently, like everybody else, to see whatever changes were coming. So on that note, we just started, because everything was sort of chaotic and everything was changing from minute to minute, we wanted to keep our kupunas safe and our club members safe. And so reaching out, for connection, like calling or visiting at that time, if you were close enough. But most of them were we were just all waiting for the next shoe to drop. And of course, expecting that it would be better in probably by April and May. We had not looked much further than that, but it didn't get better. And so we ended up canceling also our other events that was coming up in May, the San Diego Ho'olaulea, where we had we were part of the cultural village and we're doing lauhala workshop, lauhala weaving, and making the lauhala bracelets. Also, the Ho'olaulea in Lawndale was another feature for June, another fundraiser for us, and that was canceled. And then finally, we canceled it all in May because although they spoke about it looked good for October, it was still not enough time to really prepare for any of these events. And so the Pacific Island Festival, which happens the fourth weekend in September, was also canceled. The planners had canceled that, so it was like, okay, what are we doing? And in the meantime, other community resources became available. The Pacific Island Festival Association had a large food donation for all the various Pacific Island groups that participated in the festival. And so we were able to gather some of those supplies, divided it up among our needy members. A lot of them did not need, like flour, sugar, water, potatoes, carrots, just very basic stuff. And, our early makanas that went out to the community, particularly kupunas, was the face mask and the sanitizers. And of course, we all remember that about that time, there was a rush on toilet paper, paper napkins, and all of those. And we were able to get, at least somebody gave me a package of toilet paper, which I was just elated about. But, you accept those things, and that's part of, being a community and being hopeful. I think when you're put in some kind of stress, for me, it's easier to give and to share, because I think that's just the way we were brought up. And it wasn't difficult. I mean, we didn't have any serious conditions within, San Diego County, in working with the other Pacific Islander groups and the community resources that were available. I think we did pretty well, and we were able to have another general meeting because I think they loosened up the gathering a little bit. We were able to do our next general meeting at the beach at Mission Bay Park, which was a good opportunity, as I brought some of the kupunas came with me, and sharing with the other club members that were there, also being restricted with the face mask and the distance. We just all had a wonderful time. And I noticed one thing there, that, with our younger people, you cannot be a kupuna and they're not going to come up and kiss you. I mean, that's just it. Before that, I was learning to do the elbow thing on shake hand things, but that was not necessarily with Hawaiians, but with other people. And I thought, oh my gosh, I cannot stop them from doing that, and I wouldn't. It was one of those cultural things that comes from the heart. It's no way I could stop, and neither did the other kupunas. And we all survived it. It was just kind of a practice that came up so unexpected, and I think the youth also have their own mana'o on things, and the pandemic. I mean, I look at it as a kupuna, as a senior citizen, but I'm sure that the youth have a different feel for it. They're limited on where they can do outside. They could spend time at their computer, but they need exercise. They need to be moving outside. So in June, when school was not in attendance and graduations was happening, Ahuhui did, I forgot to ask my administrator to turn the next slide. Oh, and yes, this was also about the same time in March. We were very active with the census. And so this was before we were, really tied down to no close handling, and if you notice, no face mask either. So, and the next slide, please. And this is kind of the makana that we did for 2020 for the graduates. But because it was all of them, the makanas went out to even the junior high school, and I see that it's listed as from K to 12. Yeah, when they were changing whatever school from one to the other. And it was just a way to get them feeling good, and with the makanas that had activities in it for them to do and whatever. It was just a very uplifting for them to, and for those who are associated with that. Next slide, please. Oh, yes. Well, before we get to the end of, before I get to this slide, the other things that were happening, just coming in on October. In November, we were preparing for the Association of Hawaiian Civic Clubs annual convention, and that was going to be Zoomed, and it was in November, and it covered 2 weekends and I think part of 2 weeks. But for Kupuna, which is myself, I was able to get where I needed to go when I needed to get there. And so for me, it was a very quite a successful thing for me. I want to, credit the president of the association and all who helped them, because I know that there was more than one platform being used. It was just, it was over my head as far as the technology that was being used to get it. And we did have a wonderful convention, even though it was all Zoomed. And, I can't thank enough. The host council was the Hawaii Council. They did a terrific job on their fundraising efforts, their Kaʻalakahikina efforts, and their workshops that were there. And I was surprised that I was able to get to all these different places that had different platforms. I mean, it just shocked me. They made it so easy. Or I was just lucky, one of the two. But then we are, now we are back to the first of the year again, and it's January. And our club, I think we started experimenting with Zoom meetings, although we had less than 6 people in our meetings, and still was conscious of the distancing and the face mask. And but in December, when it became apparent that this pandemic was going to be here much longer than anybody predicted, that we would learn to use the Zoom, and our president did it. I believe our first Zoom meeting was in December, and in December we had a presentation by one of our members who was a former recipient of our scholarship. And her idea was to do the Navahini Health Conference. And this is the flyer that went out. And next to it, I'm not sure that you can see what the agenda was like. She covered the really important aspects of health. I think there was the opening session, a cancer panel session, mental health session, nutrition session, and exercise session. I mean, and I do believe I didn't get to this workshop. I mean, I signed up for it, and I forgot it, and I got busy. So I did not attend it until the very end, which was the exercise session. But I understand that the mental health section was rather outstanding, particularly for those who were having trouble adjusting to the change, not being able to go out when you want, not being able to shop, how you wanted. I mean, things were, for a while there, the shelves were empty, and then they started to fill up, and then there was like more standing in line waiting to be admitted with a limit of people that could be in the store. And that, that we went through all of that. That is part of what we had to learn. And then this this particular workshop was just like, wow, we did something. And I don't take credit for that. But the club did this, and it was very successful. They had very good sponsors. And Papa Oloakahi was one with gifts and also packages and makana. And for a surprise makana for those who had signed up before the deadline, I think they also had makanas that even were either personally delivered or through the mail. So, and I congratulate the people that helped support this, also the leadership in this that was outstanding, and which gave us a lot of confidence to do our next project for the year, which was the Prince Kōhio fundraising. Thank you. Prince Kōhio Scholarship Celebration on March 27th, and that was done by Facebook. I don't, I am not technically savvy, but I know that there were other fundraisers that were used on the social media, which is, which was quite successful. And I understand that this scholarship celebration with silent auction was also quite successful. So that was kind of a learning curve for myself and for those who weren't into technology as well. And so now we're coming down to what we have planned. There is next please. Yes, and I think this well, we've missed it. This was on April 17th that the Ahuhui Club was also involved in helping get the word out on the vaccine. Most of our kupunas had gotten and these are the over 75, most of them had gotten their vaccine on the beginning of February, as soon as they were available. And it wasn't that they made the appointment, but it was that their children or whoever, their daughter or son, made the appointment for them, because it was somewhat, it wasn't easy to do. And, there was appointments to be made and traveling to be done and so forth. But they all got their shots and they're all very healthy. We still have plans going on for, I think the president here, that we will be attending, webinars, and they're starting the Lehulu classes in April, if that's possible. And also, I just talked to one of the POL employees here before the webinar started, and she's going to be presenting the genealogy workshop for Ahuhui. And so we had a nice chat, and it was a wonderful opportunity for me to meet others through the Zoom meetings. I met more people that I didn't expect to meet through Zoom meetings with the Papa'ololokahi websites. And I think, I just want to thank everybody for this, and Papa'ololokahi particularly, and Lisa and Marvin, who also helped me greatly finding my way through the Zoom programs. And also my president and the board members of Ahuhui Kibila Hawaii, who were just elated that they were going to be famous, I guess. But I am here to thank everybody. I mean, everybody has been very supportive, and thank you all that are participating in this. Much appreciated. Mahalo ke kūpū, and God bless. Thank you.
Mahalo, Auntie Dolly. And now we will have Auntie Kaala, who will be presenting. Let's see if I can get her PowerPoint up here.
Hello, Lisa.
Oh, that's the wrong one.
And Kim is on the background. Mahalo for all your kukua. I just want to say aloha and mahalo ke akua, aumakua, and na kupuna, who given us the opportunity to come together and join with old friends, old colleagues, and many of our Civic Club members who are online. Mahalo for this opportunity to share with each other what we've done over the last year, the challenges we made, and the successes we have now experiencing today. Mahalo, mahalo, mahalo. Amen. I'm going to take you through what our Association Hawaiian Civic Club, Kōmike Mālama is the Health and Human Services Committee of the larger Association of the Hawaiian Civic Club. So mahalo for the opportunity for me to share with you. Next slide. Briefly, we're going to be talking about the association throughout the state of Hawaii and across the continent and Alaska. You're going to learn a little bit about what our Kōmike Mālama does and its work, how our civic clubs continues to outreach, advocate, engage our communities to work to meet the challenges and share some of the resulting successes. You've heard what one club in San Diego is doing, the tremendous work for their community. And we're going to look forward to the future with the association and the Kōmike. Next slide. The association started with Prince Keahiolalo, responsible for the Hawaiian Home Act in 1921. He realized that earlier that he needed to gather some of the leaders and working with some of the staunch Hawaiian advocates, Arkane, met and in 1918 formed the first Hawaiian Civic Club, which he was elected president. Today, the club is known as the Hawaiian Civic Club of Honolulu, we refer to as our mother club. And its mission was to effectively advocate for the education, civic, health, cultural, economic, and social well-being of our lahui. Next. The Kōmike Mālama, the Health and Human Services Committee, oversees by the associations. Sarakuliana is health education, health services, healthy nutrition and obesity, advocating for persons with disabilities, and of course, the geriatric population, our elders, and especially our Kanaka Kupuna. Monitor and advocate on behalf of our community as it relates to drug and substance abuses, monitor cost and health insurance, the Affordable Care Act, and support Hanai and foster care, as well as continue to monitor and advocate for our Kōmike, our members who are incarcerated, and to see that the rehabilitation and well-being continues. Next. The Association of Hawaiian Civic Club, for those who are joining us from out of state, are varied. We are in 17 states across the continent and throughout Hawaii. Moku o Keawe, the Hawaii Council, has 9 separate Hawaiian Civic Clubs. Moku Hono Ao Pi'ilani. Maui Council also includes Island of Molokai and Lanai, has 6 civic clubs. Moku Kakuhieva, which is Oahu Council, has the largest numbers with 26 Hawaiian civic clubs. Moku o Manu Kalanipo, Kauai Council, has 4 member organizations. And Nalei Makalapua, a mainland council, has 17 civic clubs across the continent. And for further details, please contact, this is a typo, please, you can check them online at aohcc.org for contact information on the various clubs. And if you have ohana friends, to seek out and connect with those clubs across the continent. Next, please. The challenges we met, as Auntie Dolly has shared, were very, very challenging. We started with absolutely no numbers, not knowing how our Native Hawaiians were across the continent and in our membership. OMB 15 was not fully implemented. So many of the states had Asian Pacific Islander data, which did not relate to us or identify our needs. We were without resources, and as Auntie Dolly shared, many of us who are kupuna, and I'm Métis, so really the whole Zoom, technical, social media, all very foreign. And today, I guess neither Dolly nor I are Facebook fans. So our basic traditions, such as greeting one another, sharing the aloha, the basic aloha greeting, honing one another, had to be changed. So because of social distances, our halau, who meet regularly, could no longer meet. Our face-to-face contact were extremely difficult for all of us. Social gatherings, which is our primary means of communication with one another at churches, regular rituals such as first birthday parties, weddings, memorials, celebration of life, all had to be pushed aside and had to be changed in its format. We had to look for community volunteers who would volunteer and give of themselves with cultural linguistic skills and access to Zoom, since that was, or access to internet, which was a critical format for our continued work. Training sessions in persons were all transferred to a Zoom online, and the fun we had in 2020, transitioning our Hawaiian Civic Club convention from face-to-face to a whole Zoom and WOVA format was indeed challenging. Maintaining a culture of traditions and rituals and protocols, our indigenous language speakers were sought after. We looked for our elders to help us with some of our messagings. We knew we had to form councils, and we went ahead and got seniors together, different faith leaders. They were our primary messengers for the community, getting the word out and educating our community. And the biggest challenge was when vaccines came about, our communities were limited by age criteria. As you may or may not know, there are many Micronesian communities, anyone over 75 probably are very few, if any. Many of them passed in the late 60s, so they did not qualify for vaccines. So our leadership, through our civic clubs and others, had to pull together to advocate on their behalf. Next slide, please. So this is my home mother club. Ainahau Kaleponi has a long history. We were founded by Kupuna Marianne Kalama Aki Pang in 1982. And during that time, we've been on various journeys. And I share with you briefly what they were. This is our last convention in the 2019 was the last face-to-face convention. And this is our members, our leadership that attended convention. We have been involved with census since 2000, as Kaiwi, my husband, was a member of the Racial Ethnic Advisory Committee with census. So we have definitely been involved every 10 years with the census itself. We have participating in Navigating Pacific Hearts, which is a national NIH program looking at women's heart disease. We have participated in both Pacific Island Festival, which is an annual event, as well as Susan G. Komen, which some of us are lifetime members for their breast cancer follow-up. It's a longitudinal study that many of us have donated healthy breast tissues to look at and study breast cancer survivorship. Here are a couple of pictures that we took to Washington, D.C. In 2005, we went to Washington, D.C. for annual convention. And this is our sharing our tour of Washington. Many of us also made and visited our legislative leadership. As members of the Mainland Council, representing many of the states, we were able to visit our congressional leadership, and we're able to take the message of our Hawaiian Civic Clubs and our activities we're doing in their local districts. We're meeting in the other picture with Kaiwi and Kehaulani Kasner, meeting with Ron Banta, who at that time was Assemblyman. He's now the Attorney General for the state of California. And a highlight for our work with Hawaii and our mission for Health and Wellness was the co-hosting Keahiolalo conference with Dr. Keone Blaisdell and Kalani Brady. The entire staff was able to, with the help of the John Burns School of Medicine and the Office of Minority Health, help to host a conference in Costa Mesa, California, and at which we had 250 of our communities participate in that conference. Next slide. Here are two of our champions. We call them the Pacific Islander navigators. Our coordinators are Uolani Ho'opai and Keaolani Kasner, passing out COVID materials in language, and they've taken the leadership to train and outreach and engage other Pacific Islanders. In the photo on the right photo is our Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander navigators meeting with our Asian American partners in various activities. This was an activity done in one of the many vaccine events that we're doing at local churches and at clinics throughout Orange County. Next. And keeping our traditional culture alive, it was a challenge as we're doing our outreach for 20 to 200 Native Hawaiian Pacific Islanders for vaccine. We were able to pull together some tea leaves along our homes and fashioned the appropriate traditional aids given to this particular vaccine event, were our primary focus on ministers and community based organization leadership. And this is Naite Fifita, who is our Pacific Island navigator for the Tonga. Here are a couple of the partners we formed, working with Papa Ololokahi, our Pacific Islander, Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander COVID-19 3R committee, led by Papa Ololokahi, excuse me. And their latest publication, Woven with Elders, talks about vaccine, and it's a vaccine toolkits available through their organization. The other committee is our Southern California Network Native Hawaiian Response Team, and they have now established a database and data lab with the UCLA Health Policy Group. And one of Ainahau members is co-leading that effort at UCLA Health Policy. Next. This is our, as we have converted, as Dolly shared the fact that we had to go to total Zoom. This is our Zoom, hosting our Zoom training on health disease, diabetes, health and nutrition, and weight. So as members of the ULU partnership through Native Hawaiian Health here at the University of Hawaii, John Burns School of Medicine, we're able to continue our educational programs by Zoom. This is our vaccine event that we held just this past month in March with two of our genealogists and our Keaolani Kasner and Ua Ho'opai meeting with two of our genealogists, the Johnson Ohana. We have partnered with our other Pacific Islander groups. There's a Micronesian leader, Heidi Kinga, who has shown some of the fun things we've done to reinforce and send messages to our community, and especially the smaller other Pacific Island communities, was to have messages framed for all those who receive the vaccine, to send the message out to get a vaccine and continue to wear their mask, which are really critical to the community in Orange County. Next. So some of our successes we've struggled throughout the past few months was we now have a Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander data lab at UCLA Health Policy with weekly updates. So those who are interested in getting hard data on Native Hawaiian Pacific Islanders, primarily across the continent. Papa'ololokahi provides all data here in the islands, but if you want information for those across the continent, the Native Hawaiian database at UCLA is a resource. You may want to tap into it. We've realized that we had great strengths, and realizing our kuleana and caring for our elders were critical. We extended that care and engagement of the families, both at faith-based and community-based organizations, so that strong relationship was built during this time of crisis. We've developed Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islanders, and our Asian American relatives. And we now have several community-based and faith-based collaborations. We have also found that during these crises that we've had to connect and partner with county agencies such as LA Care and the Orange County Healthcare Agency, which is the public health departments at both LA and Orange County. We work very strongly collaboratively with our academic partners, and now working with UCI, University of California, Irvine, Claremont Graduate School, Global and Community Health, and the University of Riverside. These are solid partners who provide us with much needed resources to continue the work. We've developed a Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander wellness kit toolkit that I shared earlier. Funding, training, networking, and language resources are all supported by funds during this particular activity. We've developed now and have messages in languages as Papa has online for the Native Hawaiian response team. So we have several messages in Pacific Islander languages available for community leaders and our ministers. We have both, I mentioned both the Hawaii COVID-19 3R response team, as well as the Southern California network that also networks with Oregon, Arkansas, and Utah. We now have Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander faith-based and community-based vaccination sites. We're using churches, local churches, and community health clinics to dispense vaccines, and we're now talking about possibly mobile vaccination opportunities. And last but not least, in the area of navigating, right now we have been invited to participate in a mental and behavioral health training for several of our navigators to help us deal with the loss, the grief, and the isolation we're still struggling with in the coming months. Next. This is our health and wellness toolkit that is available, and the toolkit includes food, health, financial, healthcare, employment, transportation, businesses, and housing information for all Orange County residents. So there's also a toolkit for the Los Angeles-based community. These are our partners, LA and Orange County wellness partners. Next. So that we're not only hard work and tireless energy devoted to community, we had time to spend taking care of Nahana Limano'iao. Our craft people went to work immediately. As in San Diego, we immediately started crafting masks, and every single scrap material that we had collected and brought back from Hawaii to the States were made into, and all you needed 50-inch pieces of scrap to make into abundance of masks that we shared. We've donated over 600 masks to the Kupuna Adunalilo Home. We've given over 200 to a Micronesian community-based organization. You heard from Dolly in terms of what San Diego is doing. Our Las Vegas group got even involved in making little toys and stuffed animals for their keiki and opio in Vegas at one of their activities. We were fortunate enough to tap into some of the resources online, and we're able to ship finger puppets, reinforcing our indigenous birds for a Japanese Hawaiian culture group. And the fund that started off the year in January and February, we really completed over 500 Sokles to donate to Kaʻalakahikina Church, who celebrated their 200th anniversary, but are now sitting, I guess, on these leis and will be distributed in the coming months. So we're able to participate with Kaʻalakahikina Church activities. Next. These are our partners, and for those who are working during this time, I'm sure you've built up your partnership, but we have, and we've been really blessed with so many of our partners working together and providing resources to continue our work. Next. Today in Orange County, these are partners that we're working with, our Asian American and Pacific Islander partners, to provide cultural and linguistic services for food. We have food delivery every two weeks. We're able to provide transportation, housing resources, mental and behavioral health resources, provide the spiritual support for those who are in need, home care, testing, and vaccination events for the coming weeks ahead, if not the coming months. Next. These are the partners that we're working with. Next. And so the future lies, we look forward to an in-person 62nd Association Hawaiian Civic Club Convention, November 1st through the 7th at the Tapa Convention Center at Hilton Hawaiian Village. And we mahalo Manu Board, who provided us our theme, Kai Kapu Kai Ola, as restricted ocean, living ocean. Manu shares with us our kupuna put restrictions on fishing and gathering so that the ocean resources regenerate. Lives of Kanaka depended on seasonal kapu. Today we are promoting well-being and health by new restricted behavior, mask wearing and social distancing. While those kapu were placed on us more than a year ago in 2020, we will never forget these important lessons. Next. Are there any questions? I'll be glad to take questions. You can, I guess, and ask questions on chat, which I see there are some things on chat. Thank you for placing the link for the Association of Hawaiian Civic Clubs. Please connect with them if you wanted information on individual clubs across the continent. And thank you. They have the vaccine availability. Mahalo. Kim, you're ahead. Thank you so much, Kim. Mahalo, special mahalo to Uolani Ho'opai, who's Executive Director for CEO for Pacific Islander Health Partnership, and Ainahau Kalipone Hawaiian Civic Club's Fuku Treasurer. Keahiolalo Kazner, Vice President of Ainahau, is also Secretary for the Mainland Council, Nalei Makalapua. And I want to thank Jason Pereira for his graphic work in the slides. Questions? Comments? Question.
All right.
Lisa, did you want to coordinate?
Yeah, so we'll get Auntie Dolly back on and see if there's questions for her as well. So we have mahalo anui yaolua, mahalo for carrying on this kuleana, aloha. And then there's another question, is anyone welcome to attend the AHCC convention? So I guess that question is, do you have to be part of a civic club?
Yes, you can be guests of the civic club in your area. So if you want to contact one locally, join the civic club. They can use your talent and skills. But if you want to come as a guest, one of the clubs will umbrella you and invite you as guests. So please contact us. You can contact Lisa and she'll put you in touch with us. Please, you're all welcome.
All right, and then I see that we have some links that were put in the chat for folks for additional resources and information. The link for the civic clubs, a link for the Native Hawaiian Pacific Islanders 3R Club, or 3R committee. And then the PI COVID-19 response team based in California, there's a link. Let's see here.
Thank you, Kim. You're remarkable.
And then there's the website link for the San Diego Hawaiian Civic Club. Mālama Farden is sitting president of AHCC. All right, welcome. Well, mahalo for spending the well, it's, what is it? What time is it over there? It must be 5 o'clock over there now, almost dinner time in San Diego, Auntie Dolly.
Yes, it is. It is 5 o'clock.
Almost dinner time. Mahalo for joining us, even within the time zones. And then Auntie Kaala's here.
Well,
So.
it's been a pleasure, and thank you for all your help. And yes, mahalo.
Of course.
Mahalo, Denise, for the recognition for the March. Mana wahine. I appreciate that, Denise.
All right. If there aren't any more questions or comments, I guess we'll go ahead and say aloha a hui ho. There is a couple of things I just want to bring up for some things that are coming up for Papa'ola Lokahi. I don't know if Kim, you want to jump on, or I can go ahead and let folks know about.
I'm happy to talk a little bit about what's coming up. Lisa, thanks for reminding me. So on May 4th, Tuesday, May 4th, the Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Hawaii COVID response team, the 3R team, will be partnering with the Department of Health to do an update of vaccination information, resources, what the latest is, because, everything related to the vaccinations seems to be changing on a daily basis. So we're partnering with the Department of Health to bring you a webinar that the time's not been set yet, but we will be posting it across our social media platforms and by email. In the middle of May, we are launching an Ola Hawaii series in partnership with the Department of Native Hawaiian Health at the medical school at the University of Hawaii. Ola Hawaii will be featuring emerging research in Hawaiian health and well-being. So different researchers, graduating students, grad students will be presenting their findings and their latest research. And that'll start Tuesdays at noon. That will be on Tuesdays at noon, starting May 12th. The first presenter is going to be Dr. Marie Kainoa Fielkowski-Ravilla. She is a Hawaiian nutritionist, and she'll be talking about her latest research in first foods and complementary foods for children. Then we will have Ilima Ho Lastimosa, Dr. Jane Chung Do, and others who'll be presenting some health projects that they've been working on in Waimanalo. And then we're just going to continue for the next couple of months the latest emerging research in Hawaiian health and well-being. So stay tuned for more information, and thanks for the opportunity, Lisa, to share that.
Of course, mahalo, Kim. We have another comment. Mahalo, Auntie Dolly and Auntie Kaala. Great work and great ideas for clubs to consider. I have to admit, I'm very impressed with both of your presentations. I feel like you guys are not even retired. Like I could be working for you right now. So great. It sounds like there's a lot of tremendous work you both are doing up there, and the rest of the folks in the civic clubs. And it's just really awesome to see folks that we know that are doing okay up there, and extended ohana and friends and family that are there. So this was a great presentation for me, learning about how many civic clubs are out there and how many Kanaka Maoli are out there that if we really wanted to get to visit folks, you're all over the place. We are all over the place. So mahalo.
Hi.
So some other things that are coming up for the scholarship program. Our next webinar is actually on June 25th. May, what is it today? April 23rd. Oh, so our next one is May 14th with Jared Medeiros and Joe Dudua. This is the year of the nurse and the midwife. They're both nurse practitioners. So we're going to have them talk story about some of the things that they're doing. And then also, then in June, I think one of the Fridays we have webinars, the second and fourth Fridays of the month. And so the second Friday is a holiday. And then the fourth one, we're gonna have Mona Wiki Ani, who's gonna be talking about LGBTQ topics. So we'll send you an email. We'll keep you posted on those, all of those webinars that are coming up. So there's another question. What activities do your members like that keep them connected to their Hawaiian culture?
I think all Civic Club members, and the reason we joined Civic Club, at least our organization, was to connect with the Aina. And many of us who live outside the state are longing to connect. And so to be a member of the association brought us that link for home. And whenever we make the annual trip home, we visit our kupuna, Lunalilo home. So since 1982, we have been frequent visitors to visit and be sure that our kupuna are taken care of. And as we grow old and join them in age, we feel the tremendous bond with them. And Dolly, as a ombudsman, you even take a greater step in doing that in California as well. I commend you for that. That's a lot of energy. Thank you, Dolly, for doing that for our kupuna and all of us. So please contact us. If you're interested in Civic Clubs, we'll be glad to connect. And if any of you are interested in attending the convention, our Kaʻalakahikina, our president, was online. So I'm sure with sponsorship by one of our Civic Clubs, we'd love to welcome you to our network. Please join us. It's a lot of fun, a lot of hard work, but we do have a lot of fun doing the work.
Auntie Dolly?
Yeah, well, I forgot the question. Why? What was her question?
What activities do your members like that keep them connected to their Hawaiian culture?
Well, first off, I would say the crafts. It seems like they're always interested in, making the lauhala particularly, or any of the crafts. And then, yeah, I would say that. They like the fun part, not so much the hardworking fundraising part, but that's okay. That's also, we kind of throw in a lot of Hawaiian food making and things like that. So it all works out. But, just being with other Native Hawaiians, it rubs off on you. Yeah. The style and everything, the mana'o, it's there. Thank you.
Mahalo to Dolly and Jane. You always do wonderful work in the healthcare environment. Mahalo nui loa for your presentation and all the work that you do. Kea kuapu. Oh, here's a question. I am curious to know about any ideas to get men to attend these interesting presentations. I noticed that attendance is primarily by women.
Well, I have to respond that the reason I'm really supportive of your program is that we were directly, I know we're directly beneficiaries of two of our students who went through school, medical school, connected with us. And today, one is Kapono Hansen Chong on Kauai, is the executive director for the Kauai Clinic, and Keahiolalo Beal, who's an oncologist, hematologist with Kaiser Permanente at the Red Hills. So we mahalo you and your program for bringing them and supporting them while they went through school in California. So I have to thank your program for doing that for us and our community.
Let's see here. From Big Island, Hawaii, mahalo for caring, sharing, teaching, and honoring Hawaii culture and connecting our piko to our ohana in the mainland. Oh, so do we have any ideas how to get men to attend these presentations? I'm not sure. Make them watch it.
No, I think one of my suggestions might be is getting discussions regarding the environment. I think topic on hand is Kaho'olawe, what's happening there. Issues might be those issues that they may be more interested in. So that might be interested, Kaho'olawe, the environment, what they can do to preserve. This is Native Hawaiian Plant Month, So let's celebrate. Hopefully they're all working in the garden. That was rather a sexist statement. But no, we can work together. And I think maybe identifying topics that they may also be interested in participating in might be worth looking at.
Ahakane Health and Wellness.
Yes.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Oh, when someone said feed them, well.
I have to say all the programs we host in California, I think Dolly will agree, we always have paina. We never forget that particular tradition. So that's why we miss a lot of the face-to-face meetings. We're not able to share paina together.
Yeah,
Right.
that is true. But I like to zoom in. I can talk story if I'm not in a formal setting, and I love talking story. Just like, and it's happened twice already on Zoom for me. So it's my becoming more comfortable with it. But all these little choices on the bottom, they just kind of floor me.
So we'll just be thankful you're on Zoom, and we'll wait until Facebook for later.
Thank you.
All right. Well, mahalo nui loa, Auntie Kaala, Auntie Dolly, for joining us today. And then for everyone else, we'll keep in touch. Mālama pono, ahui ho.
Aloha, ahui ho.
Mahalo, ahui ho.